Hello, thank you for coming back to IT Management. In this session, we're going to talk about that dirty word, micromanagement. The thing is, it's not really the dirty word you think it is. At some point in your career, you're going to have to micromanage. There's simply no better way to figure out a problem that you can't quite put your finger on, don't understand, is you have to get down there in the weeds and micromanage. That doesn't mean micro-do. You don't go in there and take over everything. What it means is you look at the people in your group and maybe work with each one of them for a period of time, half hour, an hour, maybe every day or every couple of days until you find out what's going on. Or you identify a block of the project that you can get into that block and really discover how it relates to other blocks. And that's where you get into this detailed analysis to find out where the problem is. So when you do this, it's there's a tendency to kind of scare people and think, what the hell is he doing now? So first, most important thing, when you've made a decision, you have to do some micromanagement to get to the root of something. Communicate what you're doing. Don't tell them I'm here micromanaging. Just tell them I'm trying to figure out a problem here. I'm trying to figure out why we're off the rails a little bit, or I'm trying to understand something a little better here. But keep communicating with your team when you're doing this micromanagement. And then when you first start it, go in little blocks first, maybe just 5 or 10 minutes to get more detail in each section. And what you'll find there is if, let's say there's 7 or 8 people that you think you have to micromanage a little bit, or 7 or 8 pieces of the puzzle that you're micromanaging, that maybe you have 2 or 3 people working on them, you'll quickly shed off some of the things that you realize that this isn't part of the problem or this isn't where the issue is. So that's the way to get started. Micromanagement doesn't happen in a vacuum in a few minutes. It's something you're going to do for maybe even a week or two while you figure out a problem. Okay, so when you think you found the problem, when you're doing this micromanagement, don't make snap decisions. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. When you're in the weeds and you're really doing micromanagement, your decision making actually has to slow down because you've taken in a lot more information a lot more quickly than you normally would on the project. So you have to analyze that information slowly, make sure you're making the right decision. If the primary reason you were micromanaging in the first place is the project went off the rails somewhere. So making a snap quick decision can actually make it a lot worse. If you take your time and work through it, you might find that there really was no big problem. Everybody knew what they were doing. The thing was moving along. It was just a resource issue, or you're waiting on something, or in that rare case, the person that sold the project or the person in charge of the project ask you to do, or your team to do something that you thought you could do and you can't. It's within the budget, within the confines. This happens a lot. It simply can't be done. And so then you might have to pause things in the middle of your micromanaging to say, I think this is what's going on here, is we don't see a good way to do this with the budget we have. So then you might have to reassess, and there was no project at all, or there wasn't a problem with the project at all. It was simply impossible to do what was asked. It could even be sometimes, I've run into this before, is the data you thought you were going to have, you don't have. And you don't discover that until you're a little bit into the project. So that's the second critical point here, is don't make quicker decisions, actually make slower decisions. Slow yourself down, slow your decision-making process down. You've got all this information, handle it as something new to you. Okay, when I say don't be an ogre and don't be a cowboy, what I mean here is don't get lost in the weeds. Don't take over and start coding or standing up servers. Or you want to micromanage it, meaning manage at a more granular level. Don't work at a more granular level. That's an easy trap to fall into. So if you do that, what you'll do is you'll get stuck kind of in your own bias or in your own little world for a bit, because you're thinking, oh, I can fix this code. Again, I talked about this in a few videos ago that I had done this. That's not what you want. You're a manager now. It's okay to code from time to time if you're part of the project and you've integrated in there. You want to keep your skills sharp. Some people don't like doing that. I don't think that's much of a problem. I've managed people for 25 years. And probably the last 10, 12 years, I don't think there's been more than a day or two go by where I haven't written some SQL code or a little bit of Python, some VB.NET, C#.NET, mostly SQL. Almost every week, or even every day, I'll find the time to help out a little bit and write some SQL code. But when you're micromanagement, you got to pull that back. Otherwise, you'll kind of lose your spot, and you'll get lost in the weeds. And the other thing, if you do find what the problem was, and it was in code or was in something technical, don't come in there on your white horse. Like you've saved the day and you're the great knight that's going to save everything. There's two reasons for that. One, it's off-putting to your department. I can do all this stuff and you guys can't. The other is you really haven't tested that code yet. And if you do that, you might be wrong. Now, you've been off-putting and you've lost credibility. When you're managing really intelligent developers, the chances of you outwitting all of them are really small. It's probably not going to happen in the first place. So it's not even worth going down that path. And think of it this way. If you as the manager in this group of 7, 10 developers or DevOps people that are using Terraform, bringing up a bunch of servers all at once and something goes wrong, and you fix it, all you've done is made yourself the lead developer again. You're no longer a manager. You haven't trained anybody to do it. You haven't shown them the process to train themselves and learn things. You just took the bull by the horns. And that may work from time to time, but it's not going to work for everything. And even if you're successful at it, you as a manager are going to lose more than you gain by it. So in that rare instance where you see something that you know how to do and you see it clearly, don't go in there and write the code or do the thing. Just pick out a guy and say, hey, I ran into this a while ago. Why don't you try this? This is what I did. That's a much better approach to it, and you'll have much better success. You also, going back to the ogre thing a little bit, when you're micromanaging, you can get frustrated more and more and more every day because you see things that aren't really going the way you think they should go or aren't really sticking to the plan. When that happens to you, that's another kind of red flag for yourself. if you're undertaking this micromanagement for, you've blocked out a week or even just 2 or 3 days, and after about the third or fourth insert, you find yourself getting more and more frustrated and angry, back off of the thing. Because you'll turn into this overlord yelling at people. They'll think, oh, why doesn't he just come into the conference room with a bullhorn? So if that starts to happen to you, pull back and realize they're just doing things differently maybe here, or I don't understand exactly what's going on. I'm frustrated because this isn't the way I do it. That's, for new managers, a big, big problem. When you're a new manager, you've got to keep that in check, and especially when you're micromanaging, because you'll just burn yourself every bridge available to you. So that's the wrap up on this one. It's a little bit short. I'm not a huge fan of micromanagement, but I do know that from time to time, it's not that I'm not a huge fan. It's bad if you're doing it all the time. You're a disaster. You're a train wreck. Everything bad I can say about your style if you do that all the time. It's not possible to have 50 different things going on at once. There's no such thing as that level of multitasking. So do it sparingly. Make sure you know what you're doing before you go into it. And if in the middle of it, when you've made the decision to do this, it starts to go south, not for the team or anything, but for yourself, where you're getting angry and angry and angry, pull out for a day or two. There's scant few projects that are going to get better by you getting more and more oppressive and overbearing. Never seen one in 25, 30 years, and I doubt you will either. So that's it for micromanagement. Hope you enjoyed this one. This one's a little bit controversial, I know. And there's some of you out there are going to disagree with me and say, you should never micromanage. You may have figured out something that I don't know, but all the managers I've worked with over the years, we've all done this from time to time, and it can be a really valuable tool for you to have if you do it properly. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.